Welcome back, Lincoln currency. You might hold a tiny copper-colored coin in your hand and think it's nothing more than a penny, something you toss into a jar or drop on the sidewalk without a second thought. But every coin has a story, and the story of the 1980 United States 1-cent coin is one that runs through history, design, and the endless curiosity of collectors who still search through pocket change hoping to uncover a piece that could be worth a fortune. The 1980 Lincoln cent might seem ordinary, but it sits right at the crossroads between the classic copper era of American coinage and the modern transition that would change how pennies were made forever. Understanding this coin means going back in time, looking at how it was minted, what it weighs, why the D mint mark or the lack of one matters, how the image of Abraham Lincoln became one of the most enduring designs in U.S. currency, and why some examples are rumored to be worth incredible sums even though most are worth only face value. People have spent decades searching through rolls and rolls of these coins, hoping to find that one flawless or error-struck piece that could fetch tens of thousands or even millions of dollars at auction. The first thing that defines the 1981 cent piece is its place in the timeline of American coinage. By 1980, the Lincoln design had already been on the penny for more than 70 years, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Victor David Brenner, a talented sculptor and engraver, had been chosen to design the new cent at the suggestion of President Theodore Roosevelt himself. Brenner's portrait of Lincoln was a breakthrough. Never before had a real person, let alone a president, been shown on a U.S. circulating coin. It was a radical shift away from symbolic representations of liberty toward an actual national hero. Over time, that familiar profile of Lincoln facing right became one of the most recognized designs in the world. When you look at the 1980 coin, you're seeing not just metal, but continuity, a living thread that connects your pocket change to the earliest 20th century vision of American identity. By the late 1970s, the United States Mint was producing enormous numbers of pennies each year. Inflation had reduced the buying power of 1 cent to almost nothing, yet the coin remained in demand because prices and accounting still relied on the cent denomination. The 1980 cent was struck primarily in two locations, Philadelphia, which traditionally produced coins without a mint mark, and Denver, where coins were marked with a small letter, D, just below the date on the front side. That little D stands for Denver, Colorado, and for collectors it's a crucial detail. Some people overlook it, but mint marks often determine rarity. A 1980 D penny might have slightly different characteristics from a Philadelphia one due to minor variations in dies or production methods. While billions of both were minted, certain die errors, doubled dies, or off-center strikes have made specific 1980 D examples desirable to collectors who specialize in varieties. The composition of the 1980 penny also marks an important historical boundary. Through that year, 1 cent pieces were made of a mostly copper alloy, 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. Each weighed about 3.11 grams. Copper prices were climbing, however, and the mint was beginning to consider a cheaper metal composition. That change would come just 2 years later in 1982, when the copper core was replaced by a zinc core with only a thin copper coating. This means the 1980 penny represents one of the last true copper coins of the modern era, giving it extra sentimental and collector value. The metallic warmth, the feel, and even the sound of dropping a copper penny onto a table differ from the newer zinc versions. For those who appreciate classic materials, the 1980 cent carries a sense of authenticity that the lighter zinc coins can't quite match. On the obverse side, Lincoln's portrait remains as dignified as ever. His gaze is calm yet resolute, symbolizing leadership and moral strength. The word liberty appears to his left, and to the right, the date 1980, sometimes accompanied by that crucial D mint mark. Above his head arches the national motto, "In God We Trust." It's worth pausing on that phrase, because it has been part of U.S. coins for over a century, expressing a mix of national faith and tradition. The placement of these inscriptions, unchanged for decades, gives the penny its instantly recognizable layout. The simplicity of Brenner's design hides deep artistic balance. The alignment of the portrait, lettering, and field space makes it timeless. Turning to the reverse, we find the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier Wheater's design. The choice of the Lincoln Memorial was deliberate. It not only honors Lincoln but also represents the democratic ideals he championed. If you look closely at the base of the memorial on the coin, you can even see a tiny representation of the seated Lincoln statue inside the monument, an incredible detail that many people never notice. Above the building runs the legend United States of America, and below it the denomination 1 cent, while the national motto E pluribus unum stretches across the top. Every element is meticulously placed, creating symmetry that reflects stability and unity. Even though billions of these coins were made, each carries that tiny architectural marvel, linking artistry and mass production. Now, about the value, this is where stories begin to swirl. Most 1980 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent in circulation. However, condition and rarity can make a massive difference. A flawless, uncirculated 1980 Lincoln cent graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC can fetch more than its face value, often a few dollars or tens of dollars depending on grade. But certain era coins, double dies, off-metal strikes, or misaligned dies, can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Every so often, headlines emerge about an exceptional example said to be worth astronomical sums. There have been myths floating around coin forums and social media about a mysterious 1980 penny selling for tens of millions of dollars, sometimes quoted as high as 8 or 9 million. While those figures are fantasy rather than verified auction results, they capture the imagination. They reflect how the world of coin collecting can mix fact and folklore, with stories spreading faster than the reality of the market. After the rush of production in 1980, the United States Mint prepared for major changes. Copper prices were still rising, and 2 years later the composition of the cent would switch to copper-plated zinc. That transition made the earlier copper coins, like the 1980 issues, feel like the last of a classic era. Collectors looking back now often treat the late 1970s and 1980 pennies as the closing chapter of the true copper period. Bags and rolls of them are still stashed away in basements and garages, saved for their metal content and the nostalgia they carry. In the decades that followed, the Lincoln cent remained the longest-running design in American coinage. From Brenner's 1909 portrait to the memorial reverse, and then the Union Shield design introduced in 2010, the coin has symbolized continuity. The 1980 piece sits neatly in the middle of that timeline, modern enough to be familiar, but still rooted in the old copper tradition. Realistic market values for 1980 and 1980 cents depend almost entirely on condition. Coins that have circulated are still worth 1 cent. Uncirculated examples with bright color might sell for between $1 and $3. High-grade certified pieces graded MS-67 or MS-68 can reach into the low hundreds because of their rarity in that perfect condition. Era coins, double dies, off-center strikes, or those struck on the wrong plancha, can be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on severity and demand. Claims that a 1980 penny has sold for $89 million are myths that have circulated online without any supporting auction records. The highest verified prices for any Lincoln Memorial cent, regardless of date, are in the low tens of thousands for spectacular mint state or dramatic era examples. The fascination with stories of impossible values comes from the thrill of discovery. People want to believe that a forgotten coin in a jar might change their life. In truth, the real reward is learning to recognize the difference between ordinary and extraordinary pieces. Collectors study die markers, check mint marks under magnification, and compare small details that most people never notice. The process turns a simple penny into a window onto art, engineering, and history. From a historical perspective, the 1980 cent also reflects the economic mood of the era. The United States was emerging from the inflation of the 1970s, and public debates over the cost of producing coins were heating up. Each copper cent cost more than a cent to make, yet eliminating the denomination was politically unpopular. The mint's eventual shift to zinc in 1982 was an economic compromise, one that preserved the coin's appearance while reducing costs. That makes every pre-1982 copper cent, including the 1980 issues, part of a material legacy that will never return. Today, coin dealers often buy bulk quantities of copper cents by weight. Hobbyists use simple digital scales or sorting machines to separate the heavier copper coins from the lighter zinc ones. The copper versions weigh about 3.11 grams, the zinc ones about 2.5. The density difference is easy to feel and hear. A copper penny dropped on a tabletop gives a solid ring, while a zinc penny makes a dull click. That sensory distinction reminds people that real metal once backed even the smallest units of currency. For a collector, the best examples of 1980 pennies to look for are those that remain red and free from spots or corrosion. Air and moisture can quickly darken copper, so storage in inert plastic holders is essential. Proof coins from San Francisco, with their mirror surfaces and frosted details, display the design in its most elegant form. These proofs show every detail of Lincoln's face, the individual columns of the memorial, and even the tiny statue visible between them. They are miniature works of sculpture, frozen at the highest level of minting technology of the time. Even after 40-plus years, the small 1980 Lincoln cent continues to inspire collectors and casual searchers alike. Part of the reason is emotional. Coins link us to the past in a way that few other everyday objects can. Someone might find one in a handful of change and realize that it has circulated through thousands of hands since the first year of Reagan's presidency. That simple realization turns a common object into a personal piece of history. The connection between person and coin is what keeps the hobby alive. Collectors often describe the penny hunt. They buy rolls of cents from banks or inherit jars from relatives and then spend quiet evenings sorting through them under a lamp. The process is part meditation, part detective work. They look for red luster, sharp strikes, tiny die cracks, and doubling on the date or lettering. In that light, the 1980 penny becomes a challenge coin, a test of patience and attention to detail. When a collector spots a minting error, the excitement is real, not because it guarantees a fortune, but because it proves that the search was worth it. That moment of discovery embodies the spirit of numismatics. Understanding why some pennies are valuable and others are not requires a sense of how rarity works. In coinage, rarity is not only about low mintage numbers, it is about survival in high condition. Billions of 1980 cents were struck, but only a small fraction remained perfectly preserved. Most were spent, scuffed, or exposed to moisture. A mint state coin that has never circulated is therefore scarcer than raw production numbers suggest. Professional grading services evaluate these survivors using detailed standards that measure luster, strike, and marks. A difference of 1 point on the grading scale can double or triple a coin's market price. The myth of multi-million-dollar pennies usually grows from misread information. Someone might see a news headline about a rare 1943 copper cent selling for hundreds of thousands and assume that any old copper penny could do the same. Videos and social media posts then amplify that misunderstanding, adding zeros until the supposed value becomes unbelievable. The truth is that only a few specific errors or historic rarities ever reach those heights. When a 1980 penny is described as worth $89 million, the story usually comes from a misprinted online listing, a prank, or a misunderstanding of how coin pricing works. Genuine auction records can be checked in public databases. None show figures anywhere near that level for any Lincoln cent still. Myths have their own value because they attract newcomers. Every year people start learning about coins after hearing one of these exaggerated tales. They pick up magnifying glasses, read guides, and join forums. Some eventually fall in love with the art and history of numismatics. In that sense, the legends perform a useful function. They turn curiosity into knowledge. Once people learn the facts, they often stay for the deeper stories. The craftsmanship of Victor David Brenner, the technological evolution of the mint, and the reflection of America's changing economy in a small piece of metal.to evaluate a 1980 cent realistically. Collectors look at several factors. First is condition. Bright red copper with full mint luster and no spots commands the highest prices. Second is strike quality. A well-defined Lincoln memorial with clear steps and a sharp portrait indicates good die alignment. Third is the presence of errors such as double dies, die cracks, or off-center strikes. Any of these can raise interest and price. Authenticating such features requires magnification and comparison with verified examples cataloged by specialists. Services such as PCGS, NGC, and Annex maintain databases of recognized varieties so that collectors can match what they find against known patterns. Market dynamics for copper cents also depend on the price of copper itself. When metal prices rise, hoarding increases. During spikes in commodity markets, millions of pounds of copper cents quietly disappear from circulation into private storage. Although melting them for metal profit is prohibited, collectors view them as miniature copper reserves. The 1980 coins, being among the last full-weight coppers, often lead these hoards. Over decades, this slow removal of coins from circulation could eventually make high-grade survivors rarer, supporting modest increases in numismatic value. Beyond economics, there is symbolism. The Lincoln design is about moral leadership and unity. Each element, the inscription "I in God we trust," the word liberty, and the depiction of the memorial, was chosen to project ideals. For some collectors, owning a beautifully preserved cent is like keeping a token of those values. They see in the coin a reminder of perseverance through hardship, much like Lincoln's own life story. This emotional layer is what keeps people attached even when financial value is modest. As technology advances, coin study has entered the digital era. High-resolution photography, microscopes that connect to computers, and online communities make it easier than ever to share discoveries. Collectors upload close-ups of a possible doubled die and ask for opinions. Others identify die chips or plating blisters. Through this collaboration, knowledge spreads rapidly. The 1980 penny, common as it is, often becomes a starting point for these conversations because so many people have one at hand. For a serious collector or a YouTuber telling this story, the message to viewers is straightforward. Check your change, learn the details, but ground expectations in reality. A common 1980 cent may not buy a mansion, but it can open a door to a fascinating world. It connects art, economics, and history in a coin small enough to balance on a fingertip. That connection between the tangible and the historical is what makes even an ordinary cent worth keeping. When someone begins exploring the world of Lincoln cents, the first lesson is patience. Authenticating any rare or valuable piece takes careful observation, not excitement or guesswork. The 1980 penny provides an excellent example of how to apply that discipline. Genuine mint errors and rare varieties share certain traits. The details are sharp, the doubling or misalignment is consistent, and the surfaces show the same color and texture across affected areas. Machine doubling, damage after minting, or discoloration from the environment can look dramatic but rarely add value. Comparing a coin against verified reference images from grading services or coin variety catalogs helps separate fact from illusion. Proper storage matters just as much as identification. Copper is reactive. It darkens, spots, and corrodes if handled or exposed to moisture. Collectors store their best pieces in acid-free holders, flips made of inert mylar, or hard plastic capsules. They avoid cleaning, since even gentle polishing removes the original mint luster and can cut a coin's value drastically. For long-term preservation, stable temperature and low humidity are key. A cent that retains its bright red glow decades later tells not only of the mint's craftsmanship but also of the owner's care. Learning to evaluate coins also means learning the market. Reputable dealers and certified grading services list transparent price guides. Auction results can be checked through public archives so that anyone can verify what a coin has truly sold for. When you see online claims that a 1980 penny brought $89 million, a quick search of real auction records dispels the rumor. No such sale exists. The figure is the result of misunderstanding or satire. The highest recorded prices for any Lincoln Memorial cents are in the low tens of thousands for spectacular proof errors or exceptional mint state examples. Knowing this keeps expectations realistic and protects collectors from scams. The most satisfying aspect of coin collecting is that it rewards knowledge more than luck. Every detail learned about the 1980 cent, the 3.11 gram copper composition, the 19.05 millimeter diameter, the placement of the D mint mark, the artistry of Brenner's portrait, adds to appreciation even if the coin's market value remains small. Understanding those details transforms a pocket object into a piece of national heritage. Each time someone studies one under a magnifying glass, they participate in a tradition stretching back generations. The penny endures because it is woven into language, culture, and memory. It is a symbol of thrift, of beginnings, of finding value in small things. The 1980 Lincoln cent embodies all of that, last of the solid copper issues, bearer of Lincoln's steadfast gaze, and survivor of an age when coins still carried real metal weight. Whether it rests in a collector's album or jingles in change, it tells the same quiet story of persistence. The myth of a coin worth millions may fade, but the genuine worth of understanding, curiosity, and connection remains, shining softly from every piece of copper that still circulates today. As time moves further from 1980, the Lincoln cent continues its quiet journey through American life. New generations grow up in a world of digital transactions, yet the penny still clinks in tip jars and coin trays, a small reminder that money once had weight and texture. Collectors know that the 1980 issue, though common, marks the end of an era when copper truly flowed through every cent. That physical link to the past gives it a charm that no virtual currency can replace. Every now and then, another rumor surfaces. Someone posts a blurry photo of a dark coin. Someone else repeats an incredible price claim, and excitement surges again. It's almost tradition now. Yet each cycle of rumor and reality brings more people into the fold of genuine collecting. They learn how to check mint marks, weigh coins, and compare die details. The 1980 cent becomes a teacher, a simple object that shows how knowledge conquers myth. For historians, the penny reflects the broader story of 20th century America: industrial growth, economic pressure, artistic continuity, and public faith in small things. The same portrait that once honored a century of Lincoln's birth has now seen more than a century of minting. Its endurance suggests that even the smallest symbol can carry immense cultural gravity. Imagine, decades from now, someone finding a bright 1980 penny sealed in a forgotten collection. The copper will have deepened to a mellow red-brown, the details still crisp. That person will hold it to the light and see not only Lincoln's face but also the reflection of every hand that has valued this design before them. In that moment, the worth of the coin isn't measured in millions of dollars but in its ability to connect people across time. It's history that fits between your fingers. So whenever you come across one of these cents, take a second look. Feel the weight, notice the shine or the patina, and remember the journey from the mint's press to your palm. Whether it's a humble piece of change or a flawless proof locked in a collector's case, the 1980 penny still tells a living story of craftsmanship, economy, and memory. The numbers may never reach 89 million, but the story is priceless. Sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest echoes. The 1980 Lincoln cent is just a sliver of copper, and yet it holds an entire century of stories. It remembers the artist who carved Lincoln's likeness, the engineers who adjusted the presses, the countless hands that traded it for a cup of coffee or a newspaper. Every scratch and spot tells of motion through time. When people talk about value, they usually mean money, but in truth the coin's real worth lies in the attention it earns. The moment someone stops to look closer, history becomes personal again. In that sense, every penny is a time capsule. It bridges the physical and the human, metal shaped by belief, used by millions, overlooked and rediscovered. Whether it shines bright red or glows with the dark warmth of age, it reminds us that progress and memory can share the same small space. The 1980 cent may never headline an auction, but it will keep circulating through stories, through curiosity, through hands that still find wonder in a single piece of copper. That is its quiet kind of immortality. Long after most of today's money has vanished into screens and digital ledgers, small copper cents will still turn up in drawers and under couch cushions. The 1980 penny will still glint under a lamp, its surface worn smooth by decades of ordinary lives. Someone will pick it up and wonder who first spent it, what stories it has passed through, and why the same face of Lincoln still watches from its front. In that quiet moment, the coin completes its purpose, not to make someone rich, but to remind them of connection. It links generations, trades, and memories into one circle of metal. That's the magic of coins. They outlast their economies. Each one is a small monument to work, art, and belief in continuity. The 1980 cent, humble and enduring, carries those ideas as faithfully as any monument of stone. When the last lines of your video fade, leave the audience with that thought, that history isn't always written in books or carved on buildings. Sometimes it jingles in a pocket, waiting to be noticed. Somewhere right now, a 1980 penny is sliding across a counter, its copper edge catching the light for a split second before disappearing into another pocket. It's still doing its quiet job after more than 4 decades, proof that value isn't only counted in dollars. Each small exchange keeps history alive. Each fingerprint adds another layer to its story. Maybe that's the real secret behind the myths of priceless pennies. People sense that ordinary things can hold extraordinary meaning. If you listen closely, the coin almost speaks. It says that craftsmanship matters, that persistence matters, that even the smallest trace of the past can still shine. When your video fades to black, you could let that sound linger, the faint metallic click of a single cent landing on a tabletop. It's the sound of time continuing, a reminder that the story of the 1980 penny, and of every hand that ever held one, is still being written. Even decades after its minting, the 1980 penny still surprises collectors. Over the years, stories have emerged of people finding perfectly preserved specimens in the most unexpected places. One collector famously discovered a roll of 1980 pennies tucked behind a drawer in an old family home, each coin as bright and red as the day it left the mint. Another hobbyist found a 1980 penny inside a bank deposit envelope alongside coins from the 1960s and 1970s, an accidental time capsule spanning generations. These finds remind us that the 1980 cent, though common, can still feel like a treasure when discovered in the right context. Collectors also talk about eye appeal, a term that describes a coin's overall visual charm. 2 1980 pennies might both be uncirculated, yet one could glow with a full copper red luster while the other shows faint toning or scratches. Even small differences like these can dramatically affect desirability and price. The 1980 penny, with its last era of full copper content, often shows the most striking contrast when stored well, making it an ideal coin for beginners and seasoned numismatists alike to compare and study. There are also fun facts about this coin that go beyond numismatics. For instance, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse actually features a tiny representation of the seated Lincoln statue inside the monument, something most casual observers never notice without a magnifying glass. That level of detail shows the mint's dedication to artistry, even on the smallest denomination. It also reinforces the idea that every penny, however humble, carries layers of thought and symbolism that connect to American culture and history. Practical tips for collectors looking at 1980 pennies include checking the mint mark, weighing the coin if possible, and looking for unusual die varieties. A simple magnifying glass can reveal double lettering, tiny die cracks, or misaligned strikes. While these errors are rare, they are what turn ordinary coins into sought-after collector pieces. Joining a numismatic community online or consulting verified coin catalogs can help enthusiasts learn to distinguish genuine variations from post-mint damage or false claims. The 1980 penny also has its place in cultural memory. It was minted during a transitional era in America, post-Vietnam, in the midst of economic change, and just before the Reagan presidency. Kids used these pennies in school lunches, coin-operated arcade games, and vending machines. Adults handled them during grocery shopping and tipping. In that sense, each 1980 penny is more than metal. It's a witness to everyday life in a very particular moment of history. And while the urban legends about pennies worth tens of millions of dollars are exaggerated, the fascination persists because it highlights a fundamental truth. Small objects often hold big stories. The 1980 cent may never break records at auction, but it connects people to the past, teaches careful observation, and encourages appreciation for design, craftsmanship, and history. It is a reminder that even the tiniest coin can carry immense significance if you take the time to look closely. For anyone filming a video, writing a blog, or simply exploring their pocket change, the 1980 penny represents a perfect narrative bridge. It blends tangible material, copper, weight, and size, with intangible history and emotion. It invites viewers and collectors alike to pause, inspect, and reflect on the journey of a coin from mint to pocket to jar to story. Each one is a chapter in a larger ongoing tale of money, culture, and curiosity. And every new discovery adds to that story, keeping the 1980 Lincoln cent alive for generations to come. As we reach the end of our journey with the 1980 Lincoln cent, it's worth pausing to reflect on why such a small coin can hold such a big story. It's not just about copper content, mint marks, or die varieties. It's about connection to history, to artistry, to everyday life. Every scratch, every sheen of red, every tiny imperfection carries a story. From the presses at Philadelphia and Denver to the hands of countless Americans over decades, each penny has been part of ordinary transactions that together form the fabric of daily life. The myths of immense value, claims of millions or even tens of millions of dollars, are entertaining and capture the imagination, but the real worth lies elsewhere. It lies in the study of craftsmanship, in the thrill of discovery, and in the appreciation of a design that has endured for more than a century. The 1980 penny is a last testament to the era of full copper cents, a tangible reminder of an America in transition, and a symbol of continuity across generations. For collectors, enthusiasts, and casual admirers alike, the 1980 cent teaches patience, attention to detail, and respect for history. Whether it rests quietly in a collection, jingles in a jar, or turns up unexpectedly in a pocket, it remains a small but potent witness to the passage of time. Holding it, examining it, and learning its story reminds us that even the most humble objects can carry profound meaning. So next time you pick up a penny, take a closer look. Notice its weight, its color, its details. Imagine the hands that held it before yours and the countless stories it has witnessed. The 1980 Lincoln cent may be common, it may be inexpensive, and it may never sell for millions, but in its quiet, enduring way, it is priceless. It is a piece of history you can hold, a story you can tell, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest things leave the largest impressions.